Connor and Madison. Barely know him anyway. My name is Zin Reynolds. I'm 42 years old. Run Reynolds Security Solutions, Rebecca. My wife for 8 years just said that about me to Ethan Morrison, a guy I thought was my friend. I heard every word through my surveillance system. They were at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Room 2847, Rebecca wore a $15,000 diamond bracelet I never bought her. Ethan bought it with $23,000 he stole from our joint account. Rebecca laughed when she said my kids barely knew me. Ethan said, after the divorce, they'll understand Daddy was never there. Rebecca nodded. We'll make sure they see the truth. 8 years. Married. 12 years. Army intelligence. 15 years building my business to 2.3 million annual revenue. These idiots thought they could take it all, if you like. Stories about cheaters getting exactly what they deserve. Hit like and subscribe right now. Back in 2013, I left the Army after 12 years in military intelligence. Started Reynolds Security with $50,000. Saved on a laptop. Corporate security consulting, helping companies protect data, executives, secrets businesses pay big money for someone who thinks like the bad guys. Met Rebecca Walsh at a charity dinner for Chicago Children's Hospital. She was 28. I was 34. Real estate developer specializing in luxury downtown condos. Drop dead. Gorgeous with auburn hair and confidence that made every guy notice her. Rebecca grew up rich. Dad Robert Walsh is a U.S. Senator. Mom, Patricia Walsh, is a federal judge. They lived in a $3 million Lincoln Park house. Sent Rebecca to private schools her whole life. She expected the best of everything. First date cost me $300. Dinner at Alinea, Chicago's fanciest restaurant. Rebecca ordered the most expensive wine without looking at prices. Closed my laptop and rubbed my temples. My stomach was twisting like I'd swallowed a live grenade. 8 years of marriage gone, or at least poisoned beyond repair. Rebecca and Ethan plotting behind my back, stealing from our account, laughing about how little my kids knew me. I should have been shocked. But after 12 years in Army intelligence, you develop instincts. Mine screamed that this wasn't just a fling. This was calculated, methodical, dangerous. Pulled up the surveillance feed again. Zoomed in on Ethan's face as he laughed at my misfortune. Zoomed in on Rebecca, her perfect auburn hair catching the light. Her lips curling in that smug, self-satisfied smile I used to love. I felt a familiar calm settle over me. This wasn't about anger. It was about precision, and I am very, very precise. First, I needed a plan. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. This was financial theft, emotional sabotage, and the potential to ruin my children's perception of me. They would see the truth. They would. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Step 1. Document every transaction, every whisper, every move. Step 2. Prepare my legal arsenal. Step 3. I smiled faintly, tasting the irony. Step 3 would be a lesson neither of them would forget. I looked around my office. The sleek black leather chair. The floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of downtown Chicago. My empire built from scratch, and here they were trying to burn it down. Little did they know, I'd survived worse. I'd outsmarted enemies with lives on the line. And now this would be nothing. I reached for my phone and called my lawyer. Prepare for a storm, I said. It's coming, and deep down, I relished it, because the truth always has a way of catching up. Especially when you're smart. Enough to control exactly how it lands. Zin spent the next few days meticulously combing through bank statements, emails, and every transaction tied to Rebecca and Ethan. Every unauthorized charge, every transfer, every suspicious withdrawal was logged in precise detail. Nothing escaped his scrutiny. He traced the $23,000 theft to a luxury jeweler downtown. They had a record of the bracelet Ethan bought, his name, his card, the time of purchase. Zin smiled. Every move they'd made left a trail. He watched the video footage again. Rebecca, laughing. Ethan sliding the credit card. Their confidence, their arrogance, their certainty that they were untouchable. It was almost comical. Almost. Zin knew patience was a weapon. He didn't confront them. Not yet. First, he needed leverage, and he needed witnesses who could corroborate the theft. He reached out to the jeweler, securing every receipt, every surveillance clip. Then he contacted the bank, flagging the transactions as fraudulent. At home, Zin kept his composure for the kids. He smiled, played, and kissed them goodnight, all while silently plotting. They would never see the betrayal. He would shield them from it. One evening, he found himself reviewing the Ritz-Carlton footage again. There it was, Ethan whispering something in Rebecca's ear, her hand brushing his as she laughed. Zin's jaw tightened. He could have confronted them in a rage, but that wouldn't have been. Zin, he wanted control. He wanted precision. He wanted justice that left no doubt. Every plan, every call, every document he gathered was a step toward exposing them completely. By the time it was over, they wouldn't just lose, they would understand. The cost of underestimating him. Zin leaned back in his chair and let out a slow breath. The game was no longer about money or betrayal. It was about setting the record straight and teaching them a lesson they would never forget. Zin spent hours each night piecing together the evidence, connecting dots that most people would never notice. Emails between Rebecca and Ethan hinted at plans far beyond the $23,000 theft. There were whispers of falsified documents, secret meetings, even attempts to manipulate mutual acquaintances to their side. Everything they had done, every scheme, was documented in meticulous detail. He called his attorney, a sharp-minded woman named Lila Harper. "I want everything organized, chronological, clear, indisputable," Zin said. "Every transaction, every conversation, every interaction. We're going to make sure this doesn't just go away quietly." Lila understood immediately. "You want them exposed. Publicly, legally, in a way they can't spin." "Exactly," Zin replied. "No excuses, no loopholes. I want the truth to hit like a hammer." Zin also began planning subtle surveillance on his own property, cameras in key areas, digital monitoring of emails and devices. Everything he had learned in military intelligence now applied in his personal life. He knew their patterns, their favorite haunts, the times they thought he wasn't watching. Every movement was another piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Ethan carried on as if the world was theirs. They flaunted the bracelet, dined in high-end restaurants, and whispered in corners of corporate events, assuming Zin remained oblivious. Every time Zin saw them, whether on his security feeds or through mutual contacts, he noted the arrogance, the carelessness. It was all fuel for what was coming. Zin's mind often wandered to the children. He imagined what it would feel like for them to see their father reduced to a mere shadow in their lives. Just as Rebecca had bragged to Ethan, it ignited something colder, sharper inside him. He wouldn't just protect his reputation. He would reclaim it in the cleanest, most decisive way possible. He also began gathering witnesses, past employees, accountants, even friends of Rebecca who had observed her manipulations. They all became potential allies. Zin approached them subtly, discreetly asking questions, letting them realize the pattern themselves. He was assembling a case no one could deny. One night, he replayed the Ritz-Carlton footage again. The image of Rebecca laughing, unaware of the camera, made his pulse steady but his mind sharp. He visualized the courtroom, the evidence laid out, the disbelief on their faces as every lie unraveled. The thought made him smile, almost cruelly. By the end of that week, Zin had everything he needed. Every document, every receipt, every recording was cataloged, time-stamped, and ready. He created digital backups, physical copies, even a meticulously crafted timeline that told the story from the moment Ethan entered their lives to the latest betrayal. Zin realized something crucial. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about strategy. He needed them to think they were winning until the moment he struck. Their hubris had made them sloppy. He would turn it against them. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, watching the Chicago skyline glow against the night. 8 years of marriage, a decade of building a business, 12 years in the army. It all culminated in this moment. And he was ready. Because Zin wasn't just fighting for money or pride. He was fighting for truth, for justice, and for the satisfaction of proving that no one could underestimate him. Not his wife, not a so-called friend, no one. And when the time came, they would see exactly what that meant. Before I continue, tell, from which place are you watching this story right now? Please subscribe and like the video for motivation. Zin woke early that morning. The city below bathed in the pale light of dawn. While most people were just shaking off sleep, he was reviewing the final pieces of his plan. Every document printed, every recording backed up, every email cataloged. It wasn't enough to just know the truth. He needed them to feel the impact. He started by sending a carefully worded email to the jeweler. Nothing incriminating, just a polite request to preserve all records of the transaction made by Ethan Morrison using the stolen funds. Next, he contacted the bank, flagging the account activity as suspicious. He didn't reveal his hand to anyone. Everything was framed as routine business. Oversight. Then came the most delicate part. Observing Rebecca and Ethan without tipping them off, Zinn knew they would continue their arrogance if they felt untouchable. Using discreet cameras and a network of contacts, he monitored their meetings, their lunches, their whispered conversations at corporate events. Every careless comment, every brag about outsmarting him, was catalogued. One evening, Rebecca flaunted the bracelet at a gala, laughing with Ethan about some secret plan they believed Zinn would never uncover. Zinn's eyes narrowed. That laugh would cost them. He didn't react publicly, didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing he was watching. Instead, he took meticulous notes, documenting time, place, witnesses, and any corroborating evidence. Zinn also began subtly inserting legal pressure. He drafted letters outlining discrepancies in their finances, making them appear as minor audits at first. Rebecca and Ethan dismissed them as routine, a casual inconvenience. Perfect. The illusion of control was a weapon. At home, Zinn remained the loving father. He played with his kids, helped with homework, and never let the tension show. It was all part of the strategy. If Rebecca and Ethan thought he was oblivious, they would continue their arrogance, leaving more evidence in their wake. One night, Zinn reviewed the footage from their last secret meeting at the Ritz-Carlton. The more he watched, the more careless they appeared. Ethan whispered about hiding assets. Rebecca nodded, confident they were untouchable. That arrogance was their weakness. He spent hours crafting a single, precise plan to confront them in court. Every piece of evidence would be unassailable. Every lie they told would crumble under documentation. But it wouldn't be a chaotic attack. It would be surgical. By the time the trial started, Zinn would control the narrative entirely. Zinn poured another drink, the amber liquid catching the soft glow of his office lights. He allowed himself a faint smile. Soon all the deception, the arrogance, and the betrayal would meet the consequences it deserved. Because in the end, Zinn Reynolds didn't just respond, he orchestrated. And once his plan unfolded, no one would ever underestimate him again. Weeks passed, and Zinn's preparations reached a fever pitch. Every document, every email, every recorded conversation was cataloged in precise chronological order. He had digital backups stored on encrypted drives, physical copies locked in a safe, and multiple witnesses ready to testify if needed. Nothing was left to chance. Zinn started placing subtle, legal and financial pressure. A quiet audit here, a friendly compliance review request there. Rebecca and Ethan shrugged it off at first, thinking he was overreacting or being cautious. That confidence, carelessness, would be their undoing. He even leveraged his network. Former colleagues from military intelligence provided insight into legal loopholes and strategies for presenting evidence in a way that couldn't be dismissed. Former clients at Reynolds Security offered character testimony, subtly corroborating Zinn's integrity and reliability. Every ally was carefully chosen. Every move was intentional. Then came the final piece, the envelope. Not just any envelope, but a compilation of evidence so complete, so airtight, that it left no room for manipulation. Every stolen dollar, every lie, every secret meeting, it was all there. The timing had to be perfect. Zinn waited for the day. Rebecca's lawyer would attempt to serve him at work. He anticipated it, calculated it, and prepared for it. When the moment came and the lawyer arrived, Zinn was ready. He didn't flinch. He didn't stumble. He handed over the envelope, each movement deliberate, controlled inside. That envelope was a meticulously curated narrative of their betrayal, backed by irrefutable proof. Emails, receipts, surveillance footage, financial statements, all laid out clearly and chronologically. No excuses, no ambiguity, no loopholes. The lawyer's confident expression faltered as he flipped through the pages. What had been a casual legal maneuver to intimidate Zinn turned into a confrontation. With a fortress of evidence he had never anticipated, word spread quickly. Rebecca's smug confidence began to crumble as Zinn's case gained traction. Every attempt she made to spin the story or discredit him only revealed her deeper entanglement in deception. Each lie unraveled under the weight of documentation. Zinn's satisfaction wasn't in humiliation. It was in precision. Every calculated step had led to this point. The courtroom was no longer a gamble. It was a stage for justice, orchestrated to perfection. He thought about the children again. The truth would finally reach them, untainted by manipulation. They would see their father not as absent or weak, but as someone who had navigated betrayal with intelligence, patience, and unwavering control. Even Ethan, the supposed friend who had stolen and lied, was powerless. Every interaction, every misstep had been recorded, documented, and positioned for maximum impact. Their arrogance had been their undoing. Zin leaned back in his chair that night, the city lights glittering below like fragments of a battle. He had already won in his mind. He wasn't reveling in revenge for revenge's sake. He was taking control, reclaiming dignity, and ensuring that truth prevailed. When the courtroom doors opened, and the evidence was presented, there would be no doubt. No one could argue, no one could spin the narrative. Zin had orchestrated every detail so carefully that the story told itself, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that when the dust settled, the lesson would be clear. Underestimate Zin Reynolds at your own peril. The day of the hearing arrived, and Zin felt an unusual calm settle over him. He reviewed the envelope one final time, making sure every piece of evidence was in perfect order. Emails, receipts, bank statements, surveillance clips, witness statements. It was all there, airtight, indisputable. He didn't need theatrics. Precision would speak louder than emotion. Rebecca and Ethan entered the courtroom exuding confidence, their smiles carefully practiced, their posture perfect. They had no idea the storm waiting for them was meticulously designed, calculated down to the last detail. Every smirk, every whisper of triumph they had indulged in over the past months was about to collapse. The lawyer representing us, Rebecca, attempted to begin with a confident opening, framing Zin as overreactive, paranoid, perhaps even vengeful. Zin listened silently, every fiber of his being calm but alert. Then it was his turn. He stood, placed the envelope on the table, and addressed the judge. His voice was steady, measured, every word deliberate. Your Honor, inside this envelope is the full chronology of events regarding the financial and personal breaches committed against me. Every claim, every transaction, every interaction, documented and verifiable, the courtroom murmured. The envelope was opened, and one by one, Rebecca and Ethan's carefully constructed lies were exposed. Emails they thought were private, bank transactions they assumed untraceable, receipts from the stolen funds, all laid bare. The lawyer for Rebecca faltered, flipping through the pages, realizing that their entire narrative had been dismantled. Zin didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Witness statements corroborated the timeline. The video footage verified the thefts and secret meetings, and the financial audits confirmed misappropriation. The arrogance that had carried Rebecca and Ethan through months of deceit had turned into panic. Every attempt to rationalize, their actions crumbled under the weight of Zin's preparation. He watched their expressions shift. Rebecca's confidence cracking, Ethan's smugness replaced by disbelief. The judge's gaze was steady, scanning the documents, recognizing the meticulous detail, the indisputable evidence. Then came the final blow. Zin presented the impact on his children and the household. Not dramatized, not embellished. Just the facts. The emotional manipulation, the financial deception, the deliberate attempts to erode his role as a father. The courtroom fell silent. It wasn't just a legal victory he was building, it was moral clarity. By the end of the day, the verdict was clear. The court recognized the thoroughness of Zin's case and the deliberate misconduct of Rebecca and Ethan. Financial restitution was ordered, legal accountability established, and every lie they had spun unmasked. Zin left the courtroom without a word. There was no need for celebration. Justice had been served with surgical precision, and that was enough. The envelope, the evidence, the months of careful strategy, all had fulfilled their purpose. As he walked back to his office, he thought about his children. They would now see the truth, untainted by manipulation, and understand the kind of father who had protected them, not with anger, but with intelligence, patience, and unwavering control. And deep down, Zin knew that the lesson would linger far longer than any court decision. Rebecca and Ethan had underestimated him, and that mistake would define the rest of their lives. Zin opened the office window, letting the cool Chicago breeze brush against his face. The city stretched below him, indifferent yet alive, full of opportunities and challenges. He had survived betrayal, outsmarted deception, and reclaimed everything he valued. For Zin Reynolds, justice wasn't a fleeting moment. It was a calculated truth, executed with precision, and unforgettable in its impact. The weeks after the court ruling were quiet, almost surreal. Zin returned to his office, his empire intact, his family secure, and his reputation untarnished. The legal battles, the deception, the betrayal, they were all behind him, laid bare and resolved with precision. Rebecca and Ethan had vanished from the social scene, their arrogance replaced by whispers and caution. The court's decision not only reclaimed what was stolen, but also made it clear that their manipulations had consequences. Friends who had once sided with them now approached Zin with newfound respect, acknowledging the thoroughness and intelligence with which he had handled the situation. Zin's focus shifted entirely to his children. He spent mornings at breakfast, evenings at homework, weekends exploring the city and the nearby parks. The bond that Rebecca had tried to undermine strengthened instead. Every laugh, every question, every shared story reminded Zin why he had endured months of planning and patience. At Reynolds Security, Zin returned to his work with renewed energy. The company continued to grow, clients drawn not only to his expertise but also to his integrity. Word of the case had spread quietly in the corporate world, earning him respect as someone who combined intelligence, strategy, and moral clarity. One evening, Zin sat in his office reviewing new projects. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the same amber liquid that had accompanied so many long nights of planning. But tonight there was no tension, no scheming, only calm satisfaction. He had protected his family, reclaimed his life, and ensured that those who tried to deceive him had faced the consequences. He thought briefly of Rebecca and Ethan, not with anger, but with quiet certainty. They had underestimated him, and the lesson would last a lifetime. But he had no desire for further confrontation. Justice, he realized, was not about punishment. It was about truth, clarity, and the confidence that comes from knowing you did everything perfectly. The city lights of Chicago glittered outside the office windows, indifferent yet alive, a reminder of challenges past and opportunities ahead. Zin felt a sense of balance returning, a life reclaimed from chaos, strengthened by resilience and intelligence. He glanced at a photograph on his desk, his children smiling, full of life and trust. That was the victory that mattered most. Everything else, wealth, reputation, vindication, was secondary. Zin Reynolds had survived betrayal, outsmarted deceit, and emerged stronger. The chapter was closed, the lesson delivered, and the future wide open. For him, for his family, and for anyone who might think cunning and arrogance could outsmart truth. The message was clear. Underestimate Zin Reynolds at your peril.